Now we're live on Facebook. Let's get going, Gus.
Hey,
Gus,
everybody.
thanks for being with me, buddy. We're going to be talking about rekindling your database for the holidays. Gus and I were talking, and Gus was saying, look, back when I was a real estate agent, because Gus now runs Power ISA, they call all incoming leads in our database for us to be able to focus on prospecting and our clients. But back when he was an agent, he said January, December, November were the best months for him. And I was looking at him and saying, dude, same thing for us. And the thing we came up with was, it's because most agents stop pressing the gas during this time. Right, Gus? What do you think, man?
100%, Tristan. And I think, on my team, one of the positive things we did was, well, first thing, I used to, I was in the Pacific Northwest, so I knew the area, right? So I knew I was working at Microsoft, before I was a full-time agent, and I knew the fall is bonus time. The fall is when people had money. The fall, and Boeing would have the same thing. Amazon, a similar thing. People had money. They were motivated. They knew that the springtime was going to be insane. So the people that were serious were already looking at that point, right? We're looking at homes, we're looking for deals. The summer rush was over. So me as a team leader, I would set the mindset that this is the best time to be looking for clients, to make those calls, to do lead generation, to do lead follow-up, and to not assume people were going to not do anything until January. Not assume that. Don't let that happen, right? So August, September, October, let's pound the phone, let's make it happen. Because during the holidays, December was always our number one month. It would always shift between like May and December. It was like one or two. December was always in the top two, 100% always in the top two. And I love that, right? I love that. Because we were hustling in that last quarter and wanted to make it happen. So I think the mindset and setting that leadership is important. And yes, I understand some places under like 3 feet of snow, totally get it. And every area is going to be different. But man, a good chunk of the country is not going to be under tons of snow. You can probably still get some deals done. So I always encourage everyone, do not assume that people are not going to do anything over the holidays, but it's a process, Tristan. It's a process. And it starts, one of the most important things is make sure that you consider your database, right? Your database is your business. I'm one of those people that 100% believe that. When I was an active agent, I'm still a licensed agent, but I'm no longer active in the business. When I was an active agent, my database was my business. That's how I started my business. It was 100% people that I knew everything, right? So Tristan, I got a question for you. Ooh. What do you, you run a mega team, you're a mega agent. What do you consider your database? What would you put, as a new agent, what would you put in there that you consider your database?
Well, as a new and an old agent, I think you have to look at everybody inside of your CRM. If you don't have a CRM, everybody inside of your phone, this is your database, right? Yeah. I think everybody that you've ever talked to or knows you or that you've ever just really met, even some people that you've never met that have come through like online leads, that's your database. And I think it's good as you start growing to start segmenting that, right? What does it look like, right? Your past clients, your core sphere, like those people that know you by name and will pull you over at a supermarket and be like, Gus, what's up, Gus? I haven't seen you forever. Core database, right? Core sphere. Then you start looking at everybody else. People that you haven't met, people that you've met, but you're kind of in the middle with, right? That's, I think, everybody. And I think that's a big mistake, Gus, when we focus on people that we only know and that we only feel comfortable reaching out to.
Yeah, 100%, Tristan. I totally agree with you. I think it starts, like you said, with those met people. People that if you call them would go, hey, Gus, how's it going? The people that will actually recognize you, either because you know them through social media, ran into them, they're former coworkers, people you know, like, and trust, family members, extended family members. All those folks, I think, are your met. Call them met database. I like that terminology, met versus unmet. But I think people, like you said, if you've been around the block a little bit, you have some years of experience, you have probably have another chunk of your database out there, which is your unmet database, right? And you can call those internet leads, prospecting leads. You can call them people that came through your website, SEO. You can call whatever you want. But people typically, the longer you're in the business, the unmet number, far surpasses the met number in a lot of cases, right? You can have a lot of, especially if you've done investing in any kind of online marketing or prospecting. You've got a ton of people in there. They may not know you. If you call them, they may have no clue who you are, but they're in your database, and you should consider them as well, right? You should consider them as well. So when I tell people you got to work a database, I'm talking about both. I'm talking about met, and I'm talking about unmet. I think the segmentation is key, Tristan. I think 100%, because even within your met, like you said, you're going to have people that are your advocates. You're going to have people that are like, man, you can call them every month. It doesn't matter. They're like, hey, they're happy to talk to you. The people that were my biggest referral sources in my met database, a lot of them didn't even do transactions with me. They just knew, trusted, and liked me enough to refer people over to me to be, just to work with our team. So I love those guys. In addition to really awesome past clients that would always refer me business. I call those people more often, but I made sure that every 3 months, no longer than 3 months, I called everybody, every single person on that list. And in particular, my sphere, the people that I knew, my Met database, which again, I moved to the US in 2004. So I'd only been in that area for like maybe, 6, 7 years at that point. I had 300 people in my Met database. 300 people in my Met database. It wasn't a massive Met database. I would kind of chuckle when I got new team members on that were like born and bred in Seattle. And they're like, my database is only 100 people. Like, BS, man, you cannot know just 100 people having lived here your entire life. I lived here, less than a decade, and I have 300 people in my Met database. Come on, you got to push yourself. So that was the numbers that I was taught, that I worked with. And that list of 300 people netted me hundreds of thousands of dollars every year.
All right. So let's get into the rekindling part. I want to start first. I'm going to go first.
Go for it.
And then you can go. I want to give an outline for people to follow for the next few weeks, because I think it's perfect. Look, we haven't even reached Thanksgiving. So Correct. It's a perfect time to do this. And all of us newer or older agents, I'm talking about not age, but just how long you've been in the business. This is what you can do to rekindle a lot of these people that you haven't really touched. And I would start with what I call your past clients and your core sphere. That's who I would start with.
Of course.
Right. And if it's up to you to do it, like if you're not leveraging other people, I am, right? I've got Gus's whole team, Power ISA. They're calling our whole database, right, routinely. But let's say you're going to just try this on your own, right? I would do this. I'd write out my past clients. If I don't have them, I know you have them here, right? You have them here on your phone. So go through, outline them. And if you don't have any past clients, don't worry, I'll get to that. But let's say you've got about 50 past clients, right? Outline them with phone numbers on a spreadsheet. If you don't have them on a CRM, if you have them on a CRM, tag them as a past client, right? If now you're done with that, go to your core sphere. Now, core sphere is easy. You're going to go through your cell phone, or you're going to go through your CRM, and you're going to check and be like, Jennifer, I don't even know who Jennifer is. Scroll past that. Oh, Gus. I know Gus, right? Gus, adding Gus. He's part of my core sphere. Like if I reach out to him, he'll pick up the phone and he'll know who I am, right? That's who you want to identify as your core sphere. Now, once you're done with those two, past clients and core sphere, that's when you start dialing. And look, you've got about 4 weeks for the holidays, maybe about 5 weeks if you want to include New Year's, right? And then you start going like this. I'm going to make it easy, Gus, because I know it gets challenging for most people. All right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to break it down to make five total calls a day to these set of people. Now, if you've only got core sphere, great. Make them all 5 core sphere. But if you've been in the business for a little bit, make it 2 past clients and 3 core sphere in a day. And if it's right before Thanksgiving, it's easy, right? You're going to call them up and you're going to call and say, hey, Gus, it's Tristan. I'm with so-and-so real estate. Hope you're doing well, man. Look, this isn't a business call, because I hate when people say this is a business call. Do you have 10 minutes? This isn't a business call. I'm just calling to say thank you. I know you and I worked in the past together, and you made a difference in my business. I'm just calling to say thank you, and I hope you have an amazing Thanksgiving. What are you doing for Thanksgiving, by the way? And then you let them talk. You shut up and listen, right? And knowing most people, because they know you're in real estate, that conversation for the most part is going to get to real estate if you just shut up and listen. Because first of all, nobody's going to call in to say thank you like that. And second, you're going to listen and you'll be like, oh, well, how are you doing, Tristan? Well, I'm doing great. Business is awesome. But look, say hi to your family. But Tristan, how is the real estate right now? How is it going? That's what it gets to. How do I know? We do this often. So same thing, once Thanksgiving is done, reach out for the holidays. Thank them for being who they are and being part of your life for the year. And you're just being grateful. New Year's, wish them a happy new year. But put the business aside for a moment and focus on them as people. And they'll appreciate that a lot more because it's so much more authentic. And 5 a day is pretty easy.
100%.
Right? And here's the challenge though. I've got 90,000 people in my data. I know you know this, Gus, or your people know this. 90,000 people in my database, right? If I break it down and I'm like 5 a day, I'm never, ever going to go through my database. So this is why we use Gus's team as well, right? So Gus's team is there to reach out to all those other people that are not my core and past clients. Because look, we only have a handful of those, right? A lot of us don't even get to 200 of those, right? But that's where we come in and say, Gus, can you handle all the rest of those in our database? Because we're never going to touch them. We'll just never get around to them. And I need you to bring those back to life and rekindle those for me, right? So that's my strategy. That's how I do it, man. That's why I wanted to start it off, because I know yours is probably deeper than mine.
Yeah, well, I think it's similar. I think so I'm going to propose people. I'm going to give them 3 calling opportunities, 3 different opportunities. They can do, I recommend at least do one of the 3. If you're a power prospector of your database, I'm not talking about cold calling, I'm talking about your database, then you'll use all 3. But I'm going to throw out 3 opportunities to rekindle your database from here during the holidays. And all of these apply during the next 6 weeks. They're 100% applicable during the next 6 weeks, and they are unbelievably powerful during this time. So number 1, like you said, Tristan, just call them during this Thanksgiving holiday and be thankful. Hey, I just wanted to check in with you. Hope everything's going great. What are your plans for Thanksgiving? Thanks so much, man. I just wanted to wish you a happy holiday. Have a great time. I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you being in my life and helping out my business back whenever. Thank you so much, right? So I think that's a tremendous opportunity, Tristan. I probably wouldn't call my, unmet internet leads with that script, though. You're right. It has to be your core sphere, and it has to be your past clients, 100%. And that's a great script to talk to them about. Like you said, Tristan, a lot of those conversations naturally will go into real estate, and they will, because that's how they know you. How's it been with the house, man? Oh yeah, it's been great. It's been whatever it is, right? Okay, awesome, great. Right? Hey, Gus, I've actually been thinking about maybe, getting a bigger house, maybe relocate. It might happen, it might not. You don't want to force it. It's not a sales call. That's the first opportunity. 100% aligned with you, Tristan. I agree with that. There's a second opportunity from here to the end of the year, which is specifically calling the past clients from the last 12 months. Sorry, from this last calendar year, from 2020. Like specifically calling them towards the end of the year and say, hey, I just want to say I really appreciated working with you this year, Tristan. Back in April, when things got crazy, we hung in there and we got that deal closed. Man, that was crazy. It's one of the craziest months I've ever been in the business. Loved it. Reminisce a little bit with those past clients. I would always do that. And actually, I kind of cheated with this, Tristan. I would send them a Facebook Messenger message, right? This was usually like the week of New Year's or right before New Year's Eve. I go, hey man, I'm reminiscing over the year. I just wanted to say, I was personal, a personal touch, right? You can do this via phone call. You can do this via email. You can do this via messenger message. I don't think it really matters in this particular case. The phone call is always the most powerful. But I would even do it via messenger message. And I would tell them, and I'd reminisce, and I'd go, hey, I thought of you because of this. And that was a crazy time. I appreciate you. Thanks for being a client. End of story. That was it, right? Amazing. And the third opportunity, and this is the one that does include a sales pitch. The third one is because at the beginning of the year, and I'm talking about the first, maybe second week of January, you want to call people. That's a phone call. and actually say, hey, happy 2021. Just wanted to wish you happy new year. And I wanted to check in and see, what are your real estate plans for the rest of the year? How can I help you? Because we're getting set. We are sending either, it might be tax documents, it might be some kind of a value, it might be a reminder. For me, Tristan, all these calls were always the easiest for me because I always had something to invite people to, an event. I had a giveaway. I had something in there that made the call 1,000 times easier for me to make. I think some people can be intimidated, Tristan, when you just call to be thankful. They're like, man, that doesn't sound like me at all. Like, I've never called these people to be thankful. That just does not, I'm not a, touchy-go-feely kind of guy. I can't pull it off, Tristan, Gus. You guys are crazy. Well, how about this? Call them to give them something of value. When I did this within my team, Tristan, it made from them not wanting to make those calls, making it really hard, to like making it unbelievably easy to make the calls. Because in their mind, they were calling them to invite them to that class we're teaching. And it might be a Zoom class, a Zoom webinar that we're teaching on whatever topic, doesn't really matter. We were calling them during this holiday to invite them to our pie giveaway, right? I did a pumpkin pie giveaway a few years. It was crazy, right? People love those things. They absolutely loved coming and picking up a pie. That might not be an option this year, but that's something that we're doing, just giving them a gift, right? Or we were inviting them because we were going to send them a Christmas card. Hey, did you get my Christmas card? And then after the event, we'd call them to thank them for attending the event if they actually attended, right? So all of these events were a great opportunity, and they can cost you just your time. It can be zero budget, essentially, if it's like a class or a workshop that you're teaching. But the most important thing, and I would tell my team, the actual thing you're giving away is not the important thing. It is the call. It's the call. It is talking to them, connecting, seeing how they're doing, and then always asking, hey, I just want to check in and see, do you have any real estate plans for the next year? And that's a great call to make in January. I just want to check in to see if you have any real estate plans. And do you or anyone you know have any plans to do anything in the next 12 months? And I'm just curious. And I'm getting ready, man. I'm going to kill it in 2021. And I'd love your help in building up my business this year and helping me grow. And that request, the ask, I feel is important. Yes, it is a moment of vulnerability, 100%, but you're not gonna, people will actually take a second and think, man, let me think about this, right? If you're asking for their help to grow your business. I always tell my team, you gotta put yourself out there. They might say no. Oh no, Gus, I can't help you right now. That's great. You know how many people ever said no to me, Tristan? I cannot think one time someone said, oh no, Gus, I can't help you grow your business, man. It within your database, that would never happen. Even, this is crazy. I had one client that I remember had a really difficult transaction with, right? Those kind of clients, you don't look forward to calling them. I would call them anyway. And you know what they said to me one time? This is crazy. They said, hey, Gus, I'm not going to your event. You know me. I'm not an event person. I'm not a people person. This is the understatement of the year. They're not people person. But you know what? I really appreciate you always checking in with me, and I was always send you business. And I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, you know what? I'm glad I made that call, because the consistency and the follow-up, even kind of a curmudgeon, difficult person appreciated that, and they took the wind out of my sails. Like, wow. I did not expect that coming from kind of a difficult client, from a difficult transaction, but I always made that call, right? So I think it's important. And having the ask is a key part of that script. So I'm not saying make three asks from here to the end of the year. Don't do that. But in one of those calls, you have to throw some value in there, and you should throw in the ask. Throw in the ask for their help in growing your business.
I love that. So I know you have a third one on there, but I have two questions for you.
Go for it.
From the audience. One of them's Diane. What's up, Diane? I just read your last name. I know you. How you doing, Diane? Would you call people who haven't been in touch with you for 10 years?
Oh, this is such a good question. So, and actually, Diane, I'm going to tie it into the last thing I just said. There's always really difficult calls to make, because, man, what are they going to think of me? Are they going to think I'm just, a loser, just a bad person for not having called them? What if the transaction didn't go great, right? What if there was an issue with the, oh, holy cow, man, I don't think he's going to be happy with me. Oh, there was an issue with the inspection. I don't want to. There's always a reason, Diane. There's always a reason to not call someone. But this is why I loved, Chris, I don't know if you took the bold class from Keller Williams or some of these folk prospecting classes. One of the things those things I liked was that they kind of forced you to make the call, right? And when I went to bold, I'm not plugging in, this is just real. When I went to a class like that and I actually had to call everyone in my database, all of my past clients, everyone, it was the first time there was a forcing function that made me make those calls. Folks, let me tell you something. These fears that we have, that we're going to get a nasty gram from someone that we know, even if it's a past client that might not have been happy for a moment, these fears are mostly in our heads. This is coming from a guy that has a company that cold calls, by the way. These fears are mostly in our heads, folks. And anytime, and this applies to scripting, this applies to your lives, anytime you have an objection that is fear-based, the likelihood that it's rational is very low, guys. It's not realistic. It's probably not going to happen. And as a person that called their database, and I would call the nasty clients, I would call the people and again, when I first called my database the first few times, there are people that I had met there, I had not spoken to maybe 5, not 10 years, but maybe 5 years, maybe 3 years, right? I had just not spoken to them. And it is all about the approach. Hey, Gus, hey, this is Gus, calling from Keller Williams. I know it's been a while. How are you doing? Show some genuine interest, right? And that's why the ask is so important. And I know how you can, I'd rather, eat nails than actually ask someone I haven't spoken to in 10 years for their help. No. You especially ask them for help, right? That's why be honest about it. Hey, Gus, I'm actually calling you because I would love your help to grow my business. That's how you start the call, but you always have to include the ask at the end of the call. It might not be a super easy conversation to start, but I guarantee you, Diane, that the resistance that we have, the fears that we have, that person's going to be nasty to us, they're going to be disappointed, they're not going to be happy. That is mostly us. And that's mostly our own internal dialogue. As someone that did this so many times and now has a company that does it, those things just really don't happen. It's mostly for us. So I would find a forcing function that would make you call those folks. Every single person you've ever had a transaction with, every single person that's in your let's go with your Facebook friends list. Call every single person in your Facebook friends list. Yes, there's going to be people there you haven't spoken to since high school. You should call them anyway. So I really would challenge people that are listening to this to make that call. Make that call. And again, you might have such a large database or such a large segmentation that you need an ISA to help you, for sure. ISAs are there to make this easier, no doubt, particularly with the unmet leads, right? Particularly with them. But there is a list of people you got to call. I don't think you should kind of shy away from that, that you should kind of take that responsibility and own it, that, yep, you should make that call, you should make that introduction. Yes, you can have the ISA follow up later, but I say the first call has to be you, and not just the call, the contact. You should make the contact and make sure, rekindle them. That's what the rekindling is, right? It's actually having a conversation with them, checking in, showing appreciation, delivering that value, and making sure you have the ask. The ask is so important, guys. Do not shy away from it. For me, having that piece of value that I was delivering made the phone not weigh 10,000 pounds. I can almost sense it when people are like, oh man, what do you mean call? Whoa, what are you talking about? The phone feels like it weighs 10,000 pounds. I cannot make that call. You absolutely can. And delivering that piece of value makes it so much easier.
Good point. And Tiffany Phillips, thanks for being on again, Tiffany. We appreciate you. She just said something great. So sometimes I call them and say, I thought I'd call you today since you haven't called me in forever. And I like that.
I like that script. That's a good one.
Me too.
That's absolutely a good one, right?
Funny. I like that. All right, question from Christopher before you go on to your third way here. Christopher Stewart asked a really good question. He really recently relocated from NYC to Boston 2 years ago. He says, I just got into real estate, never done a deal. I have about 20 contacts in my phone from Boston and maybe triple that from New York. However, the NYC contacts I haven't spoken to in these for 2 years, and some probably don't remember me. I know I need to put energy into my Boston contacts. Should I spend my energy calling the NYC people as well?
Oh, okay. So this is a really cool. So, okay. So, okay, there's a lot of things here, right? So number one, with a contact list that small, I would just call what do you got? You have time, right? If we were talking about hundreds of people where we had to prioritize, I'd go, oh, no, start with your local contacts first, and then maybe go and hit your old database. No. I would just say call everybody. So here's the thing, and this is important because when I came to the U.S., when I first, came to this country and lived here permanently, I, again, knew about 10 people that came with me, right? We all went to work at Microsoft and from different parts, and maybe from my internship, I knew about 10 people. But I also knew about another 10 people that were all over the country. Northern Virginia, a lot of the tech hubs, Northern Virginia, Austin, Texas, San Francisco, LA area, like another 10 people. Those 10 people were in my database. The 10 people, you know why? Because I would always tell them, whenever you need something, call me first. My Virginia contacts or my Houston, I had a contact in Houston that I got 2 referral fees for. I never, I now live in Houston now. I'm actually here right now. But the whole decade I was in real estate before I came here, I helped, close 2 transactions in Houston. Why? Because I always let them know, right? Hey, buddy, in whatever city, if you ever need anything, call me first because I can actually hook you up with the right agent. I have this awesome group called LabCoatAgents where I can find amazing people, right? And let me hook you up with that person. And I'd love those posts to come in. Hey, who has a great agent in this area, right? So, we can help them hook them up with the right person. And by the way, collect that referral fee, which is not too bad, right? So I would always call everybody. The default is call everybody. And I remember that, fondly because I didn't have a lot of people from outside Seattle in my database, but man, I called them, right? And yes, that netted me deals. And there was other times when I would tell people, hey, why didn't you, hey, Gus, I just bought a home. Bro, you should have called me. I will always let them know, hey, next time you or anyone you know and trust needs something, call me first, right? Because my brokerage has a great network, because I can go look for great people. Doesn't really matter. So I would say the distinction there between whether you should focus on Boston or New York, the real answer is the numbers are so small that it doesn't matter. Call everybody, number one. Number two, even call people that like, know, and trust you if they're outside your immediate area, because you can even foster that referral network as well.
Great answer, dude. Here's another one for you. I'll let you go first on this, and then you and I'll probably have the same answer. Abby Matthews is a great question. Says, would you make Facebook voice calls for Messenger instead of a regular phone call? Obviously, they're your friends, right?
Yeah.
On Facebook. Yeah. Would you do a Facebook Messenger call, or even I'm going to take it up a notch, Abby. What about a FaceTime or even a Facebook video messenger call?
Okay. Oh, that's really really great question. And this reminds me back. I'm going to go back a few years for the kids in the room. This was probably 2014 when Messenger was just taking off. Facebook Messenger was really just getting started, getting a lot of traction with everyone. And we would do not just the calling, but we'd always have like touches, right? You had to touch the lead a certain amount of times, whether it was an internet lead or database, didn't really matter. And agents on my team, the newer agents that were younger than me, would go, hey, Gus, I can text people and call them, but what about Messenger, like Facebook Messenger? Doesn't that count as a touch? And this is Gus saying, well, no, it doesn't. There's not a touch. That's not real. It's Facebook. No one's on Facebook. No one really spends that much time on Facebook. This was a real opinion I had 7-8 years ago. This is real. I actually said that. So because then it was like, yeah, social media is like a toy, right? It's not like 100% part of our lives. Worst take ever, but that did not age well. Nowadays, all of those things are fair game. That's the real answer. All of those things are fair game. The only thing I distinguish and I challenge people is always understand when it's a one-way channel of communication, and Messenger is a one-way channel, the text-based Messenger is a one-way channel of communication versus a two-way channel of communication, which is a phone call, Facebook Messenger call, FaceTime call. Oh, those are two ways. So always prioritize and value the two-way conversation 100 times more than the other one. As long as we're on the same page on that, then I would always find a way to have that two-way conversation, regardless of the medium, right? So I'm a little older and wiser now. So, hey, it doesn't really matter. But I would not replace an instant message on whatever platform with an actual two-way conversation. It's not fair. You got to have the two. You got to look to have the two-way conversation on whatever platform.
Good answer, man. Good answer. All right. I think I've covered, well, hold on. Yeah, got all the questions on Facebook and here. Let's go into that next stage you were talking about.
Well, here's the thing. Maybe I didn't explain it that well because I did talk about the 3 stages. Let me recap.
Yeah.
The first one is that holiday call, right? It can happen right now around Thanksgiving. It can happen around Christmas. You can make that to your entire database. And I think that's great. That's just the thankful and just showing appreciation call. The second one was specifically to clients that you've worked with in this last year. That's the second one. You can make a specific call to them. And I would always do this around New Year's because I was like about reminiscing, looking back on the year. I would always make it around that time. And I would just send them either a message or give them a phone call saying, hey, I appreciate you. And I would always recap that experience we had. People love that, by the way. Like I took the time to actually say, hey, you know, man, and you know what, Tristan, I would always mix this up, and I would always send messages to people like from my family and my sphere that I had visited, talked to, or like, had, like, especially if they lived in other cities or other countries, I would always message them too. Hey man, I loved seeing you, I don't know, in Mexico that day. And it was a highlight, one of the highlights of my year, right? So again, I would mix it up with my personal and my professional. But I would always send people those messages around the time of New Year's because one, I usually had a little bit less work that week. So I had plenty of time to kind of hit the database. And I thought it was a nice touch. And I expanded that to include the clients from the last calendar year, right? People you worked with in 2020. And I bet people have some awesome stories this year because it was a weird year. I mean, interesting things happened this year, to say the least. I would reminisce on that and say, hey man, we made it happen. We did it, right? Everything was against us in that transaction, and we got the deal done. I appreciate you for sticking it out. It was a great deal for whatever reason, right? So I would take advantage of that. That's the second opportunity. And the third one was starting the year, right? That first or second week of January, that's the third opportunity about making that call, about starting the year fresh and asking for their help in growing your business. And also and actually in all three of those, you can include something of value. Make sure you've got something in there because that always made things 100 times easier for me when I knew, and this is a mental block. It's a mental hack. I knew I was going to give them something valuable, so I would make the call. And not just the call, Tristan. So this is another thing. It's the contact. So you might have to make several calls. You're not done on one round. You actually have to make several attempts to try and contact as many people as possible. That was only doable for me because I mentalized that, hey, I'm actually giving them something super valuable. I can make those 3 attempts, not an issue for me. And if I didn't have that, personally, it was just harder to make those attempts.
All right, so let's then transition over to how you would envision using, let's say, Power ISA, which are just, they're virtual assistants, right? To reach out to a bigger database or even just your database, however that looks, right? How would we leverage that? I know my answer, but how do you envision it? Because look, you run the company, you see all these people run it differently and you see what works best. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so one of the advantages of having an ISA on your team, Tristan, is that these conversations about, hey, you want to motivate people to make the call, you want to try to cajole them into making sure they do this is gone. This is their job is to call. That's one of the advantages of having an ISA. There's 2 other advantages to that as well. One is they can do this continuously throughout the year. They're not just doing it during the holidays. The holidays is when you're cashing in those chips, right? So when you have an ISA, one of their activities can be calling through either your met or your unmet database every 2 months, every 3 months, and offering them something of value, right? And I saw a question pop up on examples of what that item of value can be. I'm going to jump in and I'm going to take that question right now, Tristan, and I'm going to give you a few examples. So the easiest one that we would do, and actually, so this is crazy, Tristan. I would call. So when I moved from Seattle down to Mexico to start this company, the first year I still called my database. I wasn't even in the U.S. anymore. Wow. And my partners, shout out to Jesse Moore at Pickett Street Properties. They handled all my deals at that point. I would refer them over to them. I still called my database. And I didn't do this remote. One time I flew into Seattle to teach a class on investing in real estate, right? This was back in 2015. So it was like 2016, I flew back in to teach a class and I called my database to invite them to that class. So without even living in the US, I helped generate 17 transactions just by calling the same 300 people I had called time and time again. So this is really powerful. But that's an example. The class was an example. Right now, you can teach a class over Zoom, right? And Tristan, you've talked about this, a ton. hey, make that online buyer presentation, make that, online open house, make that online kind of whatever. And you can invite your database to those kinds of events, these online events. It's easier than ever. That's one example of something of value. It can also be as simple as, hey, I've generated an awesome market report here for West LA or for Malibu or for Venice or for whatever area you're really focusing on. Hey, I just generated a market report for our area. I'd love to share it with you, right? Maybe you have to mail it. What's the best way to mail it? What's the best? I just want to confirm the email address for that. This is an amazing report. I want to make sure you get it and check it out because the market is crazy, which it actually is in most places. I want you to be informed on what's going on in our local area. I'd really love to share that with you. Or even better, I'm thinking on the fly, you can have that market report be a class. I once taught a class. I would usually teach a class in January, February about the market in for that year, what our outlook was for the market, right? What we had seen up to that point and what the smartest people were saying about what was going to happen in that year. You can do something like that as well. So, but remember what I said also earlier, the actual item of value is not the important thing here. It actually is. Make something valuable. Do that, but that's not the point, right? The point is reconnecting and rekindling. That is the point. It's finding an opportunity to make the ask. That is the point. And another couple of things I did. When I had more budget, I would make pie giveaways. Again, at most, the biggest out of those 300 people, I think 20 or 30 asked for a pie. And I think maybe a dozen showed up to pick it up. Those are things that happen with those kind of giveaways. Again, just understand it. Wasn't that big a deal for me. My biggest events were like an ice rink party. Everyone at a local ice rink, just come drinks and, food and drinks and ice skating for everybody. And I did maybe drinks and hors d'oeuvres at a local restaurant. That was the biggest things I did. I don't recommend people do that. Just you have to have the budget for those kind of things. But it can be as simple as market report, a class for first-time home buyers, for move-up buyers, for retiring buyers, for how to get your home ready to list, bidding wars. You guys have this specialized knowledge, and you always want to position yourself as a resource. So talk about what you know. That's the class. Whatever you are an expert in, talk about that. And that can be something of value that is a great reason to call everyone you know and tell them about it. That's what it means.
Dude, that's awesome. And then the pie giveaway, for those of you who do want to do it, you still have plenty of time to do it for Christmas if you want to do it, or end of the 100%. Year, right? And how that works is you call up your database. First, you find a place that has or can supply you with a lot of pies, number one. We've done this in the past, so I can tell you exactly how it works. So you either reach out to a Costco or an Albertsons or a large local store as well, and just make sure that they have enough pies for you. And the way that you do that is you start calling your database, your core. Let's say, Gus, we're going to choose your 300, right? And let's say out of those 300, you call them all and 100 of those verify that they're going to show up. Then you go to the store and say, okay, do you have 100 pies that I can purchase, right? A week before, 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before, hopefully enough time so that they have them. Then you line them up and you say, okay, this is the way that we're going to do it. It's a drive-by. So they're driving in, everything's clean, no COVID problems, right? There's a huge line around, and then you guys can do whatever you want. Maybe make it a Santa Claus picture next to the car with the kids, right? Or whatever you want to do. But there's a lot of things that you can do, and that call is a lot easier, Gus, than any other call, because now you're calling and inviting them, right? And you're giving something to them. So that makes a lot of sense, buddy. I appreciate that. So one way that we use Gus's company, just so you understand, with our massive database, is Gus is calling for some of our individual agents, not Gus himself, but his team, right? We have Carlos. Carlos is calling, and he's calling all of the database and just making sure we're not dropping the ball on any of this follow-up. And then also we have that for the rest of our database too. A lot of nurturing is what we do. Right? The nurturing helps us a lot because it rekindles those clients that we thought were dead because we just never got around to calling them and they stopped engaging. Well, this way, we start with those people that are engaging in our website the most. And that's where Carlos would start. Carlos just calls those, says it starts 24 hours back, says that got it. Let's say Jennifer's been on our website in the last 2 minutes, and she's seen like 5 different properties. Well, he's going to call up the phone and call Jennifer, see how she's doing, see if we can help her out with anything. Next, let's say Jose's been on our website 10 minutes ago and searching for property. And then we go like that all the way back 24 hours. And then Carlos starts again the next day. And that's how it works. That's how you help us with a lot of our database, man. Any other way that you've seen people use Power ISA to be able to help rekindle some of these old clients or just their database?
Yeah, so I've seen, going back to our original separation of met versus unmet, Power ISA, our companies used to call the unmet leads all day, every day. I mean, a lot of people use that primarily for that, but there's a lot of teams that actually, sometimes their sphere of influence, their database is large enough to where they're going to handle the core, maybe 50 people, but they leave hundreds. And I think in one particular case, I think this guy had thousands of people in his met database that they wanted to make sure were taken care of, right? This person didn't even have time to call their past clients. I mean, their entire list of past clients. There was hundreds upon hundreds of people on that list. So Power ISA was brought in to even call people that a lot of agents would actually call themselves. Well, if it makes sense, if you need leverage for that, do not stop the process. Don't, even if you have this massive list of clients, you have a massive business, right? So add leverage to make sure people are still getting that check-in.
That's a good
still
point.
Making sure that thing is happening. Even though the business is large, you want to try and make sure that those touches are happening.
Actually, I would outsource that to a company like Power ISA, where it's like, hey guys, we're going to do the pie giveaway. Here's the list. Call them up. Here's the script. Here's when it's happening. Go ahead and call them up and then tally them all up. Right. So that's also true. How would you have Power ISA or Carlos, because he works for us from Power ISA, how would you have Carlos reach out to our past clients? What would that conversation look like? Because a lot of people are like, well, I want to be the one that reaches out to my past clients and my core sphere, right? I don't want to delegate that. But how would your company do that for them so that they feel comfortable?
Yeah, 100%. And that addiction happens all the time, Tristan. I mean, hey, no, only I can really do this. I am the only person that can connect with them. You can say that all across the business, right? So this is another instance of that. I want people to recognize that. Yes, you might not actually be the best person to do it because number one, you don't have the time. End of story at that point, right? If you don't have the time to do it, then anyone doing it is better than not doing it at all. Number one, right? And number two, the ISAs are trained to have conversations and build rapport with these folks. So one of the typical scripts that we use when we're rekindling someone else's data, especially if it's a Met database. Hey, Tristan, this is Gus with Tristan, Armada's team. Tristan asked me to give you a call just to check in with you. So we're using that cosign. We're dropping the name of the person. We're making it apparent who we're calling from. And they asked me to give you a quick call just to check in and see how things are going with your property that you bought from us back in whatever, right? Back in 2016, when you moved into that great home on Venice Beach, Tristan asked me to just call in and check in on you, right? So at that point, Tristan, how thoughtful is Tristan to have one of his teammates check in on me? People can sometimes be blocked and say, no, I cannot have that happen, man. My clients always expect me to call. Again, it's a fear-based rejection that is not rational. People will actually appreciate that such a busy person as Tristan makes sure that my needs are taken care of by his awesome team. His awesome team is making sure that my experience is great. That's all. I'm impressed that Tristan has the systems to actually follow up with that.
That makes sense, actually, because if we look at it as if you're running a business, Gus, like a big business that you're scaling, I think then you're looking at it more like an attorney's office, a doctor's office, or just an office in general where they have a secretary and admin, somebody reaching out to see how everything's going, your appointments went well and everything, kind of like quality control or customer service.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, absolutely. And as business owners, we should, I think the teachable thing of that is that leverage can augment and increase your business, right? Leverage can help you handle that. Just because your business has grown doesn't mean you can't have that personal touch or add something that makes the customer experience great. And as agents, a challenge that we have, Tristan, is kind of assuming that the customer experience cannot be good if we're not personally involved. Nothing is further from the truth, right? the systems and the standards that we have, the values that we represent, as long as our teammates can represent those standards and those values, people will appreciate that, right? I mean, absolutely, they can actually have a good experience by working with our teammates. Because if our team represents the values and those standards, they're like, man, I love talking to Tristan's team, man. Those guys are always checking in with me. They're very helpful. I love that. No matter who I talk to, I have a great experience with them. So think about it that way. And it can be a lot easier to delegate some of those activities. And this applies to more than just calling, by the way. This is buyer's agents, showing assistants, transaction coordinators, admins. I mean, everything. The same logic applies. People like you, I mean, no doubt people want to work with you and talk to you all day, Tristan, no doubt. But what they really want is they want to make sure that their needs are met and that your standards and values are represented throughout the transaction. If you change the mindset to that, the scalability is enormous.
I love that, dude. And then here, we'll end with this question because it goes with everything we've been talking about here, okay?
Go.
Stacy, great question, Stacy, because I know a lot of other people are thinking this. How would Power ISA reach out to Sphere or to your Sphere who you haven't talked to in a long time? What would they say?
Oh, okay. So this is a great question.
Yeah.
So another one of the advantages of having an ISA make some of these calls is that the ISA knows the script, they know the value proposition, they know the situation. The ISA doesn't have the fear that you have. The ISA is not blocked on what will Sally say from 5 years ago. You know, like I mentioned before, the likelihood that Sally's going to be mean to anybody is just low. It's just very, very low, right? To anyone, much less you as an agent, much less someone on your team like your ISA. So your ISA has zero of that baggage, zero of that fear. They have zero of it, which is a huge advantage. They don't have the resistance to call. They don't have all of these reasons why they shouldn't make the call. Their job is to call. This is what they do, right? This is why ISAs, you know, that's why ISAs exist, right? Because on teams with individual agents or small teams or large teams, they find that having someone whose job it is to call is a huge efficiency, right? So I think this is another instance where that is true. ISAs don't have zero of that baggage. They have zero of those fears. They're just making the call, they're delivering value, and they're trying to make a connection with folks.
There it is. That's it. So great answer to that. Anything you want to add here? You want to add something else?
I don't know. I'm good. That was basically it. So I think, yeah, that's a huge advantage of the ISAs because that fear is just not there. It's non-existent. So it's not even an issue for them.
All right. I love that. Tiffany says, if they're mean, then I won't even know. That's true. Tiffany, that's a great point.
Absolutely. I mean, that is 100% true. If you're going to get the 1 in the million, it's going to be a nasty gram, then yeah, you're going to miss that. I mean, no doubt.
You won't even know it all. Good point. All right. So for those of you who have questions, go ahead and click on that link that we have in the chat. We also put it into the Facebook community as well. It's powerisa.com/LCA. Pretty easy. And Gus, what are we going to talk about next time, dude? Do we have that already outlined?
We don't have an outline yet, but man, this is a high bar. We had a couple of really, really good conversations, Tristan. You know, I think we got to come up with got to put our heads together, be something awesome. Because yeah, definitely. December, like I said, was always one of my favorite months for real estate. I think there's a lot of really, really great things to talk about. So I'm looking forward to it.
Dude, I love it. All right. So if you missed this or you missed the previous one and you want to watch it, because both of them had great information, you go to our YouTube channel. It's just LabCoatAgents. Find us on YouTube. And of course, visit Power ISA. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Facebook or Instagram. Reach out to Gus. He's pretty easy to get a hold of, or just post any question inside of the Facebook group for LabCoatAgents. Gus, thanks, buddy. I appreciate you. And I love Power ISA. Thanks for setting us up with Carlos. He's been great for the last 2 years. So
love it. Thanks so much. I appreciate everyone jumping in. Have a happy holiday.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks, everybody.